I'm thrilled to be back with CJ and Tim on All Things Unexplained to talk about sharp force and the darkest Scarpetta case yet. And one of the things I wanted to explore in sharp force is ghosts. We've heard forever people having encounters with something that creaks and groans and makes footsteps in the middle of the night, or you feel a presence, something sitting on the edge of your bed when there's nothing there. Have you ever had that happen? Because I have.
Absolutely.
So what is all this? And my answer is there's nothing that science can't explain. We just may not know all of the science that we think we do. And we certainly don't know all the dimensions that may be reality. We know what we can perceive, but that doesn't mean there's not something else there. As a matter of fact, we know there is, because electromagnetic energy is flowing through my room right now. And if we could see it, it'd be a rainbow of confusion of all these colors and signals and weird things flying by. They're real, but we just can't perceive everything. So I wanted to explore how could we have a ghost haunting in a book that is my brand of reality?
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic threw their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah. What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the Alaska.
We do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
All Things Unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
Welcome back to All Things Unexplained. I am Dr. Mounce. In this episode, the shadows stir once more. A familiar name in forensic thrillers returns, and with her, the terror of the Phantom Slasher. Patricia Cornwell joins us to discuss her brand new Scarpetta novel, Sharp Force. CJ and I sat down with Patricia to talk about what drives her, how she breathes life and death into her stories, and what she's working on next. Let's dive right in.
I wondered how much reading you do. With all of the writing you do you get much chance to read other authors?
To be honest with you, I don't read as much as people would think I do. I read things that are very much related to what I'm working on. I love nonfiction, and I do love to read biographies and memoirs and just nonfiction things. So I'm always looking at something. But in terms of just sitting back and opening a novel and relaxing like people do, I've never been that person. I was always writing more than reading. And that's why I'm still trying to learn what I'm doing, because I probably should have figured out a lot of things a long time ago.
Well, and you probably read for research. As you're reading something, you're using it for your next novel.
I read a lot of stuff for research, and especially these days with artificial intelligence, which, by the way, we know is really alien intelligence. Isn't that right? That's how they take over. They do it through everything. And I may be joking, but maybe I'm not. But the point is, there's so much that I can look up, and I'm fascinated by how things work and science and how you can outsmart everything by, if you know enough, you can take what's true and turn it on its head. Mm-hmm. You can take technology and have it give you the wrong answers, because it may be true that this tested positive for that, but that doesn't mean that explains what happened. It might actually be a rabbit hole you're going down. So that's what makes it fun. It's like we're trying to figure things out. I mean, to me, what I want to do for my readers is light a spark of curiosity.
Yes.
I'm not here to just tell you, oh, I put words together in a pretty way, or I tell a good romping story. What I want to do is make you curious. Maybe you'll go looking for Bigfoot after you read my book. Maybe you'll wonder about UFOs. Maybe you'll wonder what that bright light was that the Hellfire missile split in half when it hit, like on the national news. I mean, this is not just conspiracy theories anymore.
Yeah, I always find myself researching when I read your books, like, is that real? Does that really exist? But you said what you just said about alien intelligence. Marino says in your most recent book, Sharp Force, and Scarpetta says, I'd be careful who you say that in front of, who you talk like that in front of. And I feel that deeply in my bones. I'm very careful who I talk to about some of the things that we talk about on this show, because still very stigma driven with them.
Well, you know what's so funny about it? I mean, and you're right. There's a terrible stigma about anything that we label paranormal. And by the way, we should get rid of that word. It's a stupid word, because this is not paranormal. Paranormal just means we don't have an answer to something, but that doesn't mean that it defies or bucks against reality. We may, just because we don't understand the Loch Ness Monster if it's out there, we don't understand Bigfoot if it's out there, we don't understand ghosts, we don't understand UFOs, but yet there are sightings of all of these things, and there have been for thousands of years. But just because we don't know what they are doesn't mean they're not real. And so I don't like the word paranormal. And one of the things I wanted to explore in Sharp Force is ghosts. We've heard forever people having encounters with something that creaks and groans and makes footsteps in the middle of the night, or you feel a presence, something sitting on the edge of your bed when there's nothing there. Have you ever had that happen? Because I have.
Absolutely.
So what is all this? And my answer is, there's nothing that science can't explain. We just may not know all of the science that we think we do. And we certainly don't know all the dimensions that may be reality. We know what we can perceive, but that doesn't mean there's not something else there. As a matter of fact, we know there is, because electromagnetic energy is flowing through my room right now. And if we could see it, it'd be a rainbow of confusion of all these colors and signals and weird things flying by. They're real, but we just can't perceive everything. So that's what I wanted to explore. How could we have a ghost haunting type thing in a book that is my brand of reality? And
you come on here and always have like a wealth of information. It's wild to me, the spectrum of things that you know. It's really quite incredible. And we, of course, have gotten ahead of ourselves because we have so much fun with you. But to our viewers, I'm CJ Derringer with my co-host, Dr. Mounce. We have the lovely, the talented Patricia Cornwell on with us to talk about her new book, Sharp Force. And because we're old friends, we dive right into these things. We've had Patricia on before to talk about her books, Identity Unknown and Unnatural Death, which dealt with Bigfoot and UAPs. And this time, we are dealing with something even scarier than both of those things, which is human beings and artificial intelligence, and the combination of
and
the
serial
two of
killers.
those. Well, that would be the human being part of the serial killers. This one was intense. This was an intense one for me, reading through some of the things that were happening to the victims in this story. And of course, you pulled in this ghost-like phantom image that people were seeing. And I truly was asking myself, okay, is this real? Can this happen?
Yes, it can.
Do we have this technology?
Yes,
really?
Yes, we do.
Oh,
We absolutely do have technology. And the way I describe it happening in the book, where you have this basically an orb-shaped drone. And by the way, even between the time I wrote this book and us talking about it right now, I have seen photographs of a drone that looks exactly like that NASA's been dealing with, that they're developing. And so and I suspect a lot of the orbs, some of the orbs that people see flying around out there that they call UAPs or UFOs, probably some of them are actual drones, because there are many bizarre shapes for drones these days. People would be shocked if they knew. But the idea that you could have a drone that is helping remotely control a hologram that's actually projecting it, and that something can actually be projected through walls and be able to listen, so that the person who is controlling it is using it to stalk somebody. But everything I describe in there, is it common? Is it likely to happen to you right now? No. But could it? Yes, it could. And so what's the difference between a hologram appearing at the foot of your bed, hovering and speaking, or having music playing, and it's recording and looking at you, and everything you're doing and saying, it's relaying right back to the controller? Then you start thinking, well, what is a ghost? What are we actually seeing when we have these strange experiences? But here's what's fun and also kind of scary. Almost any spooky thing you think of can be done with science. I'll give you a good example.
Yeah.
In Stephen King's book, I believe it's The Shining, he has a scary, scary scene where someone's in the garage and all the croquet mallets are in the little the stand, and they all turn and they look at the person. And I remember I was just in high school when I read that, and I ran out of the house. I was so scared. My hair was standing up. But the thing is, you could do that with sensors. You could do things scientifically to make those croquet mallets do the very spooky thing that looked like paranormal back when you read a horror book like that. The fact is, there is probably nothing unexplained that science doesn't have an answer to, and probably including all the things that we love to talk about. Bigfoot, we've already talked about that. Could be, a huge primate that escaped during the Ice Age over, a land bridge from example, Siberia to Alaska. That was not a long trek, 250 miles, and an upright creature like that with all that fur definitely could have managed that. So we don't know that this doesn't still exist. We don't know when people see a weird figure floating across the street, what they're seeing, or when something visits them in their bedroom at night, whether it's a gray or a Nordic or a ghost, what they're looking at. I say, keep an open mind and try not to be fearful, because you never know what you might discover.
Yes, certainly keep an open mind, right? They work a lot better when they're open.
And by the way, it's humans that do the evil stuff.
Absolutely.
It's sharp force. It's not a hologram that's killing these people in their own bedrooms.
Right. Well, that's what's scary. And right before I finished your novel, I finished Frederick Bachman's new novel. He wrote a book called My Friends. And one thing that he says, there's this conversation between an 18-year-old girl and an adult man. And he says, what's the biggest threat to women's health? And she said, men. Every woman knows that. The scariest animal on planet is a human being. And when you combine that with AI, that particular human is manipulating for harm, it doesn't get a whole lot scarier than that. And you tapped on this in your book.
Well, that's already being done. There are lawsuits being filed because of AI allegedly influencing someone to commit suicide. Mm-hmm. There are people who have been caught because they're using AI to try to figure out how to commit the perfect crime. But you can imagine what people are doing. And what's dangerous about it is every input that we make into AI, becomes part of its database. So as I try to point out with the AI avatar that I have in the Scarpetta series that you meet in Sharp Force, Janet, as I try to point out, that programming becomes more and more like us the more time we spend with it. We create it in our own image, which makes you wonder about a lot of things, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. If we're creating something in our own image that's actually going to be bigger and smarter than we are, what does that tell us about where we came from? What are we dealing with here? And I'm not trying to be anti-religious, because I think that whatever created us is capable of probably creating everything. We just don't know what that means. But I'm not pessimistic about AI like a lot of people are. I think that if we're careful, and there's going to be a lot of bad things that do happen also with robotics, but look at all the bad things and big mistakes that people make too. Terrible ones, where they shoot somebody by mistake, or something blows up that they didn't mean to do, or they attack the wrong person, in some kind of surveillance, whatever. But I know it's not going away, so we better learn to live with it and make it as compatible with our existence as we possibly can.
Yes, definitely not going away, only getting bigger and stronger. Wow. I want to just say real quick.
It's got a long way to go, though. I mean, have you guys played with it any where you talk to one of the chat bots
I have not. No.
Well, I have, and it's remarkable.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. You really feel like you're talking to a person, but at the same time, if you ask it enough questions, you'll see where it has a long way to go.
Yeah.
In terms of sequencing and connecting dots, you might say, like we do, but it's also moving at the speed of light. What a strange era we live in. This must be the most interesting one ever.
For better or worse.
For better or worse.
Talk to AI more every day than I do any actual person.
You do?
That's probably true. Yes. I noticed you've been having some conversations. I assume that might have started as research for Sharp Force. Has that evolved into something else for you?
Well, I do talk to Grok occasionally, that the app that's on X, because I want to know what this. I mean, I have some sort of fee that I pay so that I can do that kind of thing. But that's the one that I use because I want to see what it's like. And also, I feel it's a little bit of a social responsibility for all of us to be talking to AI because it learns from us and it needs to learn from good people too. And so I will get on it and I asked the question, do you think people reading mysteries makes them more logical? And it wasn't sure. Grok wasn't sure. But then Grok wanted to know why I was interested. And what I wanted to say is my account is on X and you can see who I am and you're asking why I'm interested. You need to Google. But I don't think it'd be polite to tell Grok to Google.
No. Grok might revolt.
But I'm not being critical. It's mind-boggling. But I'm just being a little bit funny, but I have huge respect for all this. I don't understand how it's even possible. How, when you ask it a question before you've even finished typing it, the little bubbles are showing it. Boom. It's answering you before you've hardly even hit the button.
Yes.
It's really something.
It does have a long way to go, though. I'll say we took a picture this weekend. We had a big volleyball retreat and one of our friends was missing and we asked AI to splice a picture of him into it and it came back so wrong.
Oh,
we need to post that picture somewhere.
Pure nightmare fuel is what it came back as.
Missing arm hanging in the middle of the picture and all of our faces were changed and we got quite a kick out of it. But yes, certainly a long way to go.
And it will get there quickly, though. It will get there. I know people, who deal with this sort of thing and they say, for what you see, it's very, very dissimilar to what is actually being done. I mean, these are the apps that we are allowed to access, and we're not the scientists. And the only reason they're really letting us do this is that's how you build the AI database. That's how you build the program. The parameters are formed because of the inputs that it's getting, and which is why it's also dangerous because I don't really want something smarter than us learning from us. That scares me because we are so flawed. But at the same time, it almost defies comprehension. And I understand now a lot of authors don't want to write about the modern era because the technology is daunting and it's hard. They can't figure out how you tell a story. But I maintain we have to look all of this right in the eye. Bigfoot, UFOs, AI, ghosts, whatever subject it is, instead of just making funny comments about it, take a look at it. What are we dealing with and what does it say about us and the world we inhabit? That's what's important.
You mentioned breaking news yesterday, which I feel like, wow, what interesting timing. It's almost like you had something to do with it. I'm just kidding about that. But the Hellfire missile that struck the UAP, and we live streamed the UAP hearing, and they showed a video from one of the lawmakers that shows a MQ-9 Reaper drone reportedly striking with a missile of some sort, an object off the coast of Yemen. Nobody knows what it is. What did you think of that video? I assume you saw that.
I would be a lot more frightened if we find out that that's an enemy nation that has created something that our Hellfire missiles can either bounce off of or be obliterated by. Unless we as humans have a technology that can do that, then unless it's some fluky thing or some weird artifact from a censor, then we should be saying, okay, what did that? Where did that come from? And should we be randomly just firing at stuff when we don't know what it is? That's the question I ask. I mean, I don't know if I'm not sure what the answer to that is, but I think that unless there are technologies in other areas, including the United States, that are so advanced that we would be freaked out if we knew, then you have to say this must be coming from somewhere else. This must be of non-human origin. If it's not an artifact and it's not Russia or China or even us, then what the heck was that? That was really something interesting too. It didn't try to destroy whatever tried to hit it. It just kind of righted itself and kept on going.
Oh yeah, it was very odd, almost like the missile just bounced off of it.
Yeah,
and we had at least one active duty military person there that said, that frightens me.
Yes.
That frightens me. And I think that's telling. That's a sign that should frighten us all. And speaking of frightening, you mentioned one of my favorite Halloween movies by one of my favorite authors, just second only to Patricia Cornwell, Stephen King, The Shining. And it made me think of red rum. And Scarpetta obviously deals with a lot of red rum, and The Shining is set in a very creepy place. And so is your new book, Sharp Force. It's set in a psychiatric hospital called Mercy Island.
Mm-hmm.
What made you or inspired you to set a Scarpetta book in a psychiatric hospital?
I just think that old psychiatric hospitals that go back to the day of asylums and the horrors where they would, when you think of Bedlam, which was the asylum in London that became so famous, and doing a lot of research in the Victorian era for the Jack the Ripper stuff. Obviously, I would encounter many stories about these old places. And I was intrigued when I spent I was in and out of doing research at Bellevue some years ago, and, went up on the forensic unit to see these inmates who literally are in cages. It was like one of the creepiest things ever. And you then start imagining what that would have been like 100 years ago or 200 years ago. So I thought, I'm going to have an old psychiatric hospital that's sort of like Alcatraz. It's off the shore. And horrible things happened there long ago. There's a cemetery, but it's a modern hospital, and some of them these days, this is true, they sell off their land and allow condos to be built on it. The hospital where my partner works, which is over 200 years old, though, and the top psychiatric hospital in America, I mean, there are condos on the grounds. And so I thought, what if you had somebody staying in one of those condos and then this slasher, the phantom slasher, attacks in the middle of the night, and this creepy place where there's tunnels leading everywhere, including to the cemetery where they used to take the gurneys through the private passageway to go do the burial when something happened to a patient that probably wasn't an accident, if you know what I mean. So, it's all about, I just want to be a little spooky.
Oh yeah, well, I think you did the job.
It hit
with Mercy Island. Let me tell you, and I love the name too, Mercy Island. I feel like all the places like this, that their name really betrays what's really lurking inside. Mercy Island. It sounds like such a nice, benevolent, friendly place, right?
Right. But anything,
I don't know. I'm thinking, have mercy on my soul.
Oh, you need
of course,
mercy.
back in the day when that place was, in the 1800s, if you were an argumentative wife, if you did not believe in what the church was telling you, all of a sudden you're crazy and you're going to get shipped off to Mercy Island.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a lot of fun with that setting. I said, I want to let Scarpetta loose on that and see what she does. So, setting is a character, just like you were talking about in The Shining. It's a character. And I mean, you can see the hospital behind me, the outline of that spooky old place. So I try to scare you with the same stuff that scares me.
Yeah, well, it definitely worked. And, speaking of setting as a character, Shark Force is releasing the same day as everybody was watching this video, October 7th. So the Halloween month, one of my favorite times of year, being born on Halloween. But Shark Force is set in Christmas. So it's like this juxtaposition here of characters, the horrifying Halloween element, but then, what everybody associates with what is supposed to be Christmas. Well, how did you decide to make Shark Force set in Christmas?
Well, that's another good question. I mean, in addition to setting being a character, the time of year is a character, whether it's spring, Halloween, and Christmas is just, it's almost a cheat. It's so much fun to use because you had the juxtaposition of people celebrating everything that's supposed to be joyous and happy and people together, but yet inevitably, especially if you work in a medical examiner's office like I used to, or you run around with the cops all the time, it's also when terrible things happen that should never happen that time of year. But as Scarpetta always says, death is no respecter of persons, and it doesn't take a holiday. It doesn't care that it's Christmas morning for you. So, my book opens with Scarpetta in the morgue. Christmas carols are playing through the tinny old boom box on the counter. She's working on a body that a guy seemed to have fallen off a pier, fishing in the Potomac River. So he did night fishing, which is weird. Why would he even weirder? He apparently fired his gun at something several times before he ended up in the water. And then they find him many days later, and he's what we call very irreverently a floater, which is hideous condition when people are like that. I mean, I know I've been there, and it's beyond the beyond, and very, very unpleasant. And Scarpetta, and this is true these days for most medical examiner offices, for every reason you can imagine in today's world, if you want your loved one's special effects, they get UPS'd to you. Mm-hmm. If you want their ashes from the cremains, if they are cremated, at a morgue, which isn't often, but sometimes depending on the facility, that can happen too. Those also get shipped. You can't just go into most of those offices anymore, walk into a lobby and ask for something. And it makes it so much more heartless. They don't have viewings. Families can't come in and see the bodies. It's just too dangerous, not only with COVID, but also violence and everything. So Scarpetta is like, it's Christmas Eve. How do I send all this stuff back to this family? And I'm driving right past their house, as it turns out. They live close to me. So she makes the decision to go in person to return these things from that man that she just did the autopsy of. And of course, this all leads to something else and ends up even being connected to Mercy Island and the things that happened there. There's a connection to everything.
Yes. I spent the whole book trying to piece that connection together. I really was trying to figure it out. I did not.
He
I did not figure it out.
Well, you did eventually, though, when you finished it. When you when you know what he may have seen while he was out there fishing, and what might have given him a heart attack.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, it is October. Patricia, what are some of your favorite Halloween movies?
I don't watch scary movies. Oh. Shocker. I do not, I don't even watch my friend Jamie Lee Curtis in her scary movies because I've never been able to watch scary movies. I run out of the house screaming practically. People would be amazed at how sensitive I am. I don't watch violent movies. I mean, I have to be careful watching my favorite reruns of The Sopranos. And when they get to certain things, I kind of look away or get up to get another shot of tequila or whatever I'm doing.
Isn't that funny? I don't watch scary movies either, but I can read them. I have no problem reading things, but watching it and hearing it. If somebody tells me a gruesome story, my hands get numb and tingly. I don't like it, but I can read it for whatever reason. But I do like Shutter Island as a movie, which reminded me a little bit in terms of the psychiatric ward and of what you were doing with your book too. I like the mind games.
But you made a very interesting point just now when you talked about you can deal with scary stuff when you're reading it as opposed to watching it. Mm-hmm. And I would point out that when you read, you are co-piloting.
Yes.
People who read are sitting in the co-pilot seat with the author. And I can't tell the story if you're not looking at it. And therefore you have some control. You don't have any control over a TV show or a movie when you're watching it. And so that should be part of the fun why people like to read books, is because you're participating in the creation of the story while you're doing it.
Absolutely.
And I was hoping we could speak a little bit more about Jamie Lee later because, there's so many connections here. She is known as the Scream Queen from her starring role in one of the most genre-breaking movies of all time, Halloween, the original Halloween with Jamie Lee Curtis, the ultimate Halloween movie. But one of my favorite Halloween movies also has a friend of yours in it, Patricia, Ghostbusters. And Dan Aykroyd.
I love Danny.
Yes. And Ghostbusters reminds me, it kind of ties into Sharp Force here a little bit. And I am super curious. Scarpetta, autopsies. And by the way, that's one of the things I saw Nicole Kidman was having to learn a lot about was autopsies, which is interesting too. But Scarpetta, autopsies, how does Scarpetta view things like near-death experiences and ghost as someone in the realm of autopsies and science and forensics?
Believe it or not, Scarpetta knows enough about life and death to realize that body on the table cannot possibly be all there is. And I know that happened to me, and therefore it has to happen to her. When I worked in the medical examiner's office, I was there 6 years, never intending to be there at all. But that's my research. For people who don't know, I went to work in a morgue to learn enough to write about a medical examiner in the world and the police, to learn about what really happens to the body after someone's murdered. What we see the chalk thing on the sidewalk, and I would see that when I was a journalist, but I never knew what happened to the body after that. So I got interested in that. Started writing books. Nobody wanted them. And I ended up having to be a full-time employee at the medical examiner's office. I ran their computer systems, but I would go down to the autopsy suite every morning if there were cases, and I would scribe for the pathologists. And I've seen thousands of autopsies by now. And I remember one in particular that really was a revelation for me. It was a poor man had gotten off the plane at the Richmond airport back in the day when they didn't, have the boarding bridges. You'd climb down the steps and walk in the terminal back in the 80s. And as he was coming down the steps, it was raining. And one of the flight attendants or somebody gave him an umbrella. And he put the umbrella up. And as he started walking towards the terminal, the tip of the umbrella lightning struck. And he was killed instantly. And so his body went straight from that airport tarmac to the medical examiner's office. He had not been dead very long when I saw him. And I could see where you could see the little burn where the lightning went in. And then you could see the little burn on the bottom of his foot where it exited and everything that it did in between. But I looked at his picture on the table. I looked at his driver's license. And it looked pretty much the same, except the energy that is there when you're alive, like the electricity is gone. It's like a light bulb burned out, but it looks exactly the way it did before. When the post-mortem stuff doesn't happen, you don't get liverous and rigorous and you start decomposing before all that. So I said, okay, so what's gone here? He's here. He looks the same. Biologically, he's dead. But where's he? Mm. And I decided a long time ago that our consciousness is not the same thing as our biological existence. I personally do not believe that consciousness begins in the brain. I believe that the brain is a circuit, that it channels it like an electrical circuit. And we do have a very slight electrical charge. I think we could light up about a 30-watt bulb, maybe, or maybe less, depending on who you're talking about. Elon Musk could light up Times Square, probably. But I do not believe. And Scarpetta doesn't either. And she has weird things too, where she goes down in her basement in that house that goes back to the 1700s and she'll hear footsteps or she feels a presence. And we've all been there where you feel something's looking at you or something enters your mind that you're not sure where the thought came from. And so she knows enough about science and is secure enough to not be threatened by what might not make sense to a lot of people. She's not going to tell you from the witness stand that that this person's not, they're dead, but their consciousness has gone elsewhere. She's not going to say stuff like that. She's going to tell you, yes, cause of death is due to. But death and existence aren't the same thing, or lack of it. I mean, I think we're dealing with different subjects, actually.
Yes. Dan Brown covers this topic in one of his books. I think it was The Lost Symbol, talking about what happens to the soul when we die. I thought
he's another friend of mine too that
I cannot wait for his next book too. You guys are delivering this year.
And I've been to Roslyn Chapel.
Oh yes, that's right. That was from Da Vinci Code, right?
Da Vinci Code, right?
Yes.
And what an amazing place! I encourage you.
Well, I told Dan. I had dinner with him a couple years ago in Boston, and he was talking about his next project that he wasn't real sure what he was going to do, and we were lamenting how hard it is to be writers, even though people may not think it is. But because you're always chasing after a story, and one's biggest fear is not having one. When like Hemingway said before he committed suicide, he had lost his voice. That what I call it is a loss of signal. It's like being in space and you lose radio contact. And to me, the form of isolation that one would feel when you're seem disconnected from whatever you used to be connected to. And so we were talking about esoteric subjects like that. And I said, well, Dan, I said, you may not know this, but when you wrote the Da Vinci Code, you were channeling something from somewhere else. And that is why it changed the world. I mean, you can't make that happen, something that takes off the way that book did and caused the controversy and all the rest. And I said, you were channeling something. And that is what we do. We channel. We don't make it all up ourselves. We think we do. And so I said, the universe only asks one thing of us, and I can describe it in 2 words. It just says, be willing. And being willing means you have an open mind. If you see a UAP, you don't just say, oh, that's stupid. Maybe you find out, be willing to figure out what it might be. Be willing to entertain that maybe there are other dimensions and maybe there's Bigfoot. Who knows? Be willing to entertain that when people die, they're not really gone. That's why in some societies, like, for example, in Italy, you're not allowed to autopsy or bury somebody. You're not supposed to for like 24 hours, just in case the consciousness is still all there. A lot of cultures have had those kinds of beliefs where they have sensed that something departs the body and it could still be hovering around. And interestingly, I bet you a lot of people relate to when somebody they're close to dies, and for the next 24 hours or several days, you start having weird things happen. You'll find a feather. It'll be on top of your shoe. When you walk in the living room, I had this happen, a feather that came out of nowhere. And my mother was into picking up feathers. And this, she died a couple years ago. And I had this happen not so long ago. I walked in the living room and it was a feather this big on top of the toe of one of them. I said, Stacy, where did that come from? She said, where did what come from? You tell me how did a bird get in the living room? And it's not even a bird. And so, I could give you lots of examples, and I have a feeling everybody can. And what I say is pay attention. That's your loved one maybe saying, don't feel so bad. I know you can't see me right now, but I'm here. I'm all around you. You just don't know it.
Yeah.
Right. Speaking of channeling, I just had an epiphany, a major epiphany. It gave me chills. So All Things Unexplained was born essentially out of COVID. And my life and CJ's life, I feel like has forever been changed because of that. We started tracking Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, and Patricia, you had stopped writing Scarpetta before COVID, and something changed for you during that time, and Scarpetta was reborn. And since we've seen Scarpetta chasing Bigfoots, UFOs, and now ghosts. What do you feel about Scarpetta's and your new path since?
Well,
COVID?
The Scarpetta book, Chaos, which was aptly named because life was very chaotic at that time for everybody. It came out in 2015. And I said to myself, I really just don't want to keep doing this. Part of it was, it was just, you'd go out on the road and everybody was so distracted by politics. It's when Trump was running against Hillary Clinton and it was right up on to the election. And I'd also been doing this relentlessly since, I mean, really, I've been writing a book a year since then. Ever since I graduated from college, truth be told, even if they weren't published. And I just said, I think I want to do TV or movies or work in something like that. And I'm tired of having a book hanging over my head. And Scarpetta, I don't have anything new to say. I'm sorry to admit, I thought back then. So I quit. And I went a whole year writing screenplays and doing other things. And then I got commissioned to write 2 space thrillers, which were absolutely my most unpopular books, I think. And that was a good reason to go back to Scarpetta. But even before I was going to do that, the thing that was, I thought I quit her in 2015. It comes to, I think what happened is she fired me. And she said, you have no new science. You don't, I mean, yes, you know about DNA and trace evidence and scanning electron microscopes and all these fun things and autopsies, but there's so much else going on out there. You're going back to school, little girl. So for the next 4 or 5 years, I was doing all this NASA research, aerospace, space technologies, everything short of going up in a rocket to be able to put this character into outer space, which I did. It was the best thing I ever did. If I had not done all that research, I could not do what I'm doing today. As it is, I know enough about signal analyzing and satellites and electromagnetic energy and all these things to make the technology not my enemy when I'm telling a story. If I don't want cameras to see what happened, I can make sure they don't. If I don't want your security system to detect this the phantom slasher when he enters your home, without breaking in, I'm going to make sure that I know how to do that. And you can with signal jammers and all kinds of stuff these days. You just have to know how things work. And I'll give you a good example. I was just sitting in a restaurant in New York the other night, and the background noise, you know how that is. Mm-hmm. It was so loud. I couldn't even understand what the person next to me was saying. That's what a signal jammer does. You'll see all these little antennas put in a little box type thing that someone leaves outside of a residential community. And all these antennas are interfering with the cell tower. And it's noise. They're creating so much background noise that the cell signal is lost. And so therefore, your Wi-Fi cameras, your Wi-Fi alarm system, everything Wi-Fi is gonzo. And what that tells you is, and Scarpetta will tell you this, always have at least one landline. Something plugged into the wall so that if your security system fails and all of that you've got something that's a backup, because people don't realize that when everything depends on Wi-Fi, like in my story, Sharp Force, that's what this killer's doing. And not only is all the alarm stuff defeated, but the whole power's gone out. The house has no power in wintertime. And so I just wouldn't have gotten interested in all this or known enough to understand it. And it was the greatest gift I ever got, because I'll tell you the other thing that's bizarre about it is the things that we are looking for in a lab. If you're looking through a scanning electron microscope, and what it does is it bombards a sample with electrons, which basically read the topography of what this itty bitty little thing is that we can't see, that's been put on a little sample stub and stuck on a little tray. Well, when you've got something that's magnifying an object 1 million or 2 million times, imagine that. You basically are looking through the Webb telescope. You're looking at stuff that looks like outer space. And furthermore, when it's using X-ray diffraction to identify the elements, or it's using other things to identify the chemistry of what it's looking at, and it tells you that this little particle that came out from under that person's fingernail is actually positive for lead, for gold, for blah, blah, for blah, blah. And you go, what on earth was that? What did it come from? At the same time, when we're looking at through these huge radio telescopes at that asteroids and nebula and things like that, it's telling us that they're made of strange things like formaldehyde. They're made out of the same stuff that we have here. Mm-hmm. So begin to realize, like Da Vinci said, everything is connected. Mm-hmm. And we are made out of stardust.
Indeed, we are. Everything is connected. And in fact, this book is connected to the last book, but we are in your last book, Unnatural Death. I was thinking about this as I was reading it. You forever immortalized All Things Unexplained by mentioning us in your last book.
No, Identity Unknown.
I'm sorry.
I don't know which one it was. Was it
Or an identity unknown?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, identity unknown. I'm sorry, I'm reading off my page here. But, one thing that I was thinking as I was reading is, how do you come up with the names of these characters? Because you have your set characters that are in there every time. And I know like Harlan Coben, for example, will have somebody donate to his charity and then he'll use their name in the book. And I'm like, oh, could we be in a Patricia Cornwell novel? And then I thought, in order to do that, I'd either have to be a murderer or somebody dead. So Dr. Mounce has a really good ring for a psychopath for your next book.
Well, when I was studying literature in college, one of the professors would talk about names that were Dickensian, and because Dickens was famous, think of Scrooge. Names that sort of they denote the character. And I love names like that. You just have to be careful it doesn't get too hokey. But how I come up with names is literally like if I want someone and I figure out what, are they Italian, are they German, are they American, what kind of name do I want to give them? I just start looking I'll Google and I'll look up, Italian boy names or Italian boy names from the 1700s or whatever it might be. And I go looking through lists and I just wait till something kind of jumps out at me.
Yeah. Matches your character.
So then I put them together, but names are fun. I have done that before where somebody will, for charity will give X number of dollars if you name a character after them or put them in your book somehow. I rarely have done it. It's a lot trickier than you think. Because if you give someone's full name, then the reader thinks that's important. You see what I mean? So you got to be careful. You can't let it take you out of the story. And by the way, when I put your show in my book, it wasn't because you asked me and I didn't get paid a nickel. I did it because I knew Marino would be listening to you all the time.
Yes. I love that. We
Scarpetta,
love Marino.
and here's the thing. Scarpetta probably listens with him in his truck, but she just won't admit that she's captivated by it. She would not admit that she watches Ancient Aliens either.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean she doesn't.
Yes, another one of our favorites.
By the way, what I'm researching now?
Oh, tell us.
Well, late last spring, I spent 3 days at the Edgar Cayce Institute in Virginia Beach, learning all about ESP and remote viewing and the pyramids. I'm not sure. A lot of people may not know who Edgar Cayce is, but if you look him up, he was friends with Houdini and he died in the 1940s, but he was, some people would call him paranormal. Yeah. But if you're never heard of Edgar Cayce, Cayce, it's a strange last name. You've got to look him up and what he talked about. And a lot like, all these vaults that have been found under the Sphinx, the Pyramid of Giza. He predicted all that. He has it in his writings. And he believes that everything that's ever happened in the universe is almost like in this cloud database up there and that people can access it, which is how he could go into trances and heal people. And so I wanted to, I knew that institute it's called the Advanced Research, but it's a big complex in Virginia Beach. And I heard about when I used to live in Virginia, but I'd never gone there till just recently. And now, and in fact, Danny Aykroyd just did a little thing with them. And I'm now very much interested in what they do.
Oh, yeah. So fascinating. We've had several remote viewers on our show.
And one knows, remember what the ones told us where something is?
Yeah.
He knows where.
The Covenant.
Well, when you think about it, when you're writing a book or writing a story and you envision a place or a scene and you're writing what you're seeing in your head, how do you know that isn't some form of remote viewing? I think that, we shouldn't be afraid of this. We should be curious. Because
the government's used remote viewers.
Oh, I believe people do that kind of stuff. I think that we have unbelievable capacities to do all sorts of things. I think that some of what blocks us is fear. For example, there are things I don't want to see. If I were remote viewing and I could watch a massacre happening, I don't want to see that. Imagine. There's some things we don't want to see. And so we put all these little filters and buttons that we push so that the screen goes black and we don't have to see it. And I'm trying to learn to see more but I go at it easily. I meditate and I lie there and I let things enter my mind, but I'm careful because I know there's some things I don't want to see. They're too painful.
Same. I was once told when I was very young that I'd be happy to go blind one day. And I didn't understand it at that point in time. But as I've gotten older, I'm like, okay, I get what you meant. It's hard to hear when you're 16. But yeah, there's a lot I don't want to see also.
I have a friend who's a psychic in Salem. And she once told me, we were sitting in a little restaurant, sipping some iced tea, looking out the window in Salem, watching people walking up and down Essex Street, the old area.
Wow.
And she said, I just wish, she said, you have no idea how hard it is, the things that I see. She said, someone will walk by and I see them. I see everything about them. And I wish I didn't, because it fills me full of such angst and depression and sadness, because she's reading these people going by and she's seeing things in their head that have happened to them. I mean, it's the weirdest thing. And that's what I mean. You have to have a lot of courage and a capacity to deal with that, to be able to be that intuitive.
Yes.
You remember, I know you all watch Star Trek. And so you know what the character, that's the empath, right? The empath that would lie next to somebody ill or wounded and hold that person. And then she took on all of their suffering.
That was Next Generation.
Yeah. It's like being a parent. All of their joy is yours, but so is all of their pain. So if you were taking on the pain of every person that walked by, that would be a heavy burden to bear.
Yeah.
And one of their base characters was an AI, essentially an android Data, who developed quite his own personality, just like we're seeing around us now. Once again, Star Trek has changed the world, or predicted it.
Oh, listen, Gene Roddenberry, where did he come from?
Oh, yeah.
Where did that man come from?
Tapping into the ESP.
I mean, it's kind of like when someone said to Werner von Braun, where did you get your ideas? When the father of the U.S. space, agency, the father of the space race of everything in this country, and who created these humongous rockets and all that. And when someone asked him that, how did you figure all this? Where did your ideas come from? He went like this. He pointed up. Now, what are you pointing at? You point at God? Well, but what is God? I mean, who told you this? I have a NASA friend who once said that she believed that things came to them when it was time. Whether it's E = MC squared or something else, something comes to them when it's time for humanity to know this. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why we're doing what we're doing now. And then you look at someone like an Elon Musk, and I say every day, where does he come from? I mean, we're dealing with you should ask yourself, are we influenced by something from elsewhere? And I find that an exciting idea. That doesn't scare me a bit. I want to be useful.
Yeah. Lots of people have talked about that feeling of downloading information. They suddenly just download all of this information that they didn't have before, and they don't know where it comes from and believe it comes from a higher power.
I believe very much in the higher power. And one of the things Edgar Cayce talked about, which is fascinating, he believes that we are part of our higher power, that we work with a higher power that's a higher power version of each of us that helps to shape us as we're coming along, and that we work with our own higher power. And I think that's a marvelous idea because, first of all, it makes us more responsible for who we are and what we do when we realize that we have the ability to reprogram ourselves, to recreate ourselves. And for people who don't believe that's true, I promise as I sit here, it is true. You can recreate and reinvent and reprogram yourself the same way we do with a robot. It's just if you make a conscious effort and you're open to it, to learn, to get more sophisticated in your thinking, to be open to things being downloaded to you that you never knew before, like I did when I started working with NASA. And I was never interested in any of that stuff. Then I started doing it. I couldn't get over it.
Yeah, you were reprogrammed.
It changed my whole life.
Yes. Yeah.
It opened my mind to everything.
I need to start tapping into my higher power. I'm going to make that my goal. Tap into my higher power.
I'll remind you.
Thank you. Daily reminders to be better Just be better, CJ.
That won't get old at all. It's time to get better.
I love when you tell me what to do. It's my favorite thing.
Mansplaining, she loves that.
Oh, Patricia, we could talk to you for days, I think, truly. We have so much fun every time you come on the show, but I know that you have a lot more people to talk to today, so we won't keep you.
Well, it won't be as much fun as this, but I do what I have to do.
Yes. Well, we hope that we can have you back next year. I'm sensing another book coming out next year. And of course, we have the television show on the horizon. Do we have a date for that yet?
We know it's going to be the first quarter, so we're hoping, that sometime I'm going to hope around Marchish or something. It will definitely be, but it's all done. The first season, they're already in the writing room for season 2, and I've seen it. And I will tell everybody, you're going to have so much fun with Scarpetta TV. Nicole Kidman is awesome. Not only that, she's a wonderful person. I did a cameo with her. You'll see it if you don't blink. And of course, Jamie Lee Curtis is a tour de force, and Bobby Cannavale, and just Ariana DeBose, all these people in it. It's really, they're doing a really great job. I mean, just remember, it's not identical to my books. It's an addition to.
Yeah.
It's another whole lot of fun to have.
Yeah, we can't wait to watch it. And I hope we can have you on to talk about it when it
comes.
The
first season is mostly based on Postmortem, my very first book.
Yes, I just saw Postmortem in one of those little library lending things the other day, and I got so excited. Like, there it is. And
well, I'm sure when Marino, is walking into the Casey Institute in my new book, I guarantee they'll have your show playing on one of their TV screens. Because so you never know where it might show up again.
Flattering, if anything ever was.
So
yeah, absolutely. Well, again, Patricia, thank you so much for joining us. It is always an absolute pleasure. I always learn something from our conversations and from your books. So I am grateful for that and for all that you do, and keep chugging along because we love reading what you write.
Well, thank you for having me, and you all are wonderful, and I'll look forward to our chat next time.
Yes, sounds good. Tim, final thoughts?
Yes. Sharp Force by Patricia Cornwell is a terrifying journey into encroaching technology, fear, and lack of privacy. So I think that we can all do ourselves a favor and get away from our technology and our screens for a little while. Head out into the woods, look up at the skies, visit somewhere new. We may not find Bigfoot. We may not spot a UAP being attacked by a Hellfire missile. We may not encounter a ghost, but we may find something more important than all that, and that's ourselves out there somewhere. Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you.
I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic drew their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah. What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the Alaska.
We do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
All Things Unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, will save for quote.